Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Methods. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the channel again. Right off the bat here, listen, if you follow along with today's lesson, it's only 2 sheets. Hopefully, it'll be nice and short. I'm hoping for 35 minutes. You are going to 10x your playing with this lesson. We're taking the last 3 lessons of ideas, so you may have a prerequisite of watching those longer lessons to get these melodic cell ideas I'm talking about. From there, we are going to learn to change to non-diatonic. We're going to learn to solo, over non-diatonic chords. That means chords that come from different keys, not necessarily your typical solo where 2 chords are coming from the same key. In that regard, there's a lot to explain, but you know what? People love it, and I love it when people just get right into the information. So let's just do that today, and know that you're gonna 10x your playing, and I think everything I wanted to say in the intro will come up in the lesson anyways. Oh, I will be jamming today. Today there is I have created a backing track for this, so you'll actually hear this technique played, proof in the pudding, right? But that means that I don't really have the ability to edit these videos once they're done recording. It's kind of a one-shot deal. And many times if I'm doing a good lesson, I don't want to throw it away just because I made a mistake in my guitar playing. So over the backing tracks, you'll get to hear me play good or bad. And if we make a mistake, we'll just start playing again or something like that, and I'll explain it. But in that regard, stay tuned for that entertainment when we get there. And let's just, I guess, get started. So we want to solo over a chord change that's non-diatonic. Why would you want to do that? Or, well, you're going to you're going to have a skill that 99% of guitarists don't have. Meaning that most guitarists will learn to solo over within, and they'll create music even diatonically always, as if once they learn the rules of music theory or the foundation of music theory, it's better said that way, they feel like they're locked in by a rule. And it's nothing could be further from the truth. You can do anything in music. I'm gonna show you today. We have I made a backing track with 4 bars, 2 bars each of 2 chords that don't go together and don't come from the same scale. So you'd think that it's going to sound completely awful. It is a little jarring, but it's not impossible. You can just simply put the 2 chords together. If everything follows with intention, the chords on the piano change, the bass player changes, everything kind of works. We'll hear the backing track alone, and then you can judge for yourself. When it comes to non-diatonic changes, there are um, there's a couple of them, but you know what happens is that there's a 2-for-1 deal shows up where one uh, change on your fretboard, the way you would play your different melodic cells will work for 2 different types, two of the 12 changes. I'm going to show you that in a second. Let's talk a little bit about about changing keys or borrowing chords. You can modulating. You can really call it whatever you want to try to describe where do these 2 chords come from. How will I know what to do? And today, what are we gonna let's talk about this real quick. Chords changing function by a flat third. What does that mean? In today's lesson, chords are going to change by a function. That means just a function is major, minor, dominant, whatever. Today, all we're going to focus on is major or minor. And one of the chords, or we're going to have a 2-chord loop. One of the chords is going to be major, and one of the chords is going to be minor. So they're changing function. One major, one minor. Pretty easy. And as you see here, today we're dealing with the movement of the chords by a flat third. And if you know your major scale, you're like, yeah, I don't think there may be 1 or 2 moves of a flat third. Well, there's a couple. There's a whole bunch. in the major scale. So for example, A major, like down here where it says example, A major to C minor. Well, that's not in the diatonic scale, but if we switch functions, if I go A minor to C major, you can hear how they really fit together well, sound good together. Well, they both come from one key. But what if we switch those functionalities around? Then they would not come from one key because there is no place where a minor moves up a flat third to a major. So that would be non-diatonic. Now what do we do when we solo? Because now the key of C will work over the C major chord, over the key of A major would work over, just for example, over the A major, but C minor is not in the A major scale, so you would need to do something different, and most guitarists would be stuck, or maybe you would just simply move your scale up. And you can do that too. That will work, but it's a little bit disjointed and doesn't give you that sound that some other really crafty guitarist or your favorite guitarist has. So how can we handle this? And if we learn to do it, we're going to be in like a top 10% of guitarists, because most people can't, just lower my sleeve there, most people can't do that. So we have the root of just going down here, and this will describe the 2-for-1 deal right here, and I'll explain that deeper. But we're going to use a flat third today. The other one that I'll make a second lesson on. We're just going to do one today to keep the lesson easy, because I think if you learn this today, then you can make a worksheet of your own and figure out any non-diatonic chord change, because you're going to see how we build it, how we arrive there today. You see everything. So the only other one, so this is going to be kind of like a fusion change, and I'm going to explain why that would be. The other one that we're going to probably go to next is changing function but moving by a major third, because that's another one that's non-diatonic but is probably common enough to be like in fusion or jazz. So what do I mean by common? Well, when it comes to changing scales and just considering like one major scale to another major scale, like pulling a chord or borrowing a chord from a totally different scale. In rock and roll and pop music, there are a lot of borrowed chords that happen, but very typically it's like, the parallel minor and stuff like that. Those keys share a lot of notes. When it comes to changing keys, actually there's a pattern, and the number of shared notes means how close the keys are together. So a key has 7 notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and 2 keys will share 6 notes. So there's 2 keys you can really borrow chords from in rock and pop without really jarring the audience. The next level of keys, to go a little bit stronger in your key change and be a little more jarring, are keys that share 4 notes, and that would be like there's a lot of that in the jazz in the jazz genre, because it's got that difference. However, it's not too strong. And in rock fusion too, we start to get into there. This change of a flat third, I believe, is the one that shares, it's either the 4 note, or there's also one that shares 3 notes. I could actually fill that out, and probably should add that information on hand, but it's not really that important for to learn anything today. But anyways, because we're not taking that approach, you can find those 3 exact notes and use those as pivot notes and then branch out into the next scale. That's a way to do this too. But we're going to do this melodic cell way today. Now, which is going to provide us its own set of pivot notes anyways. Or really steps that allow you to just step into the new scale. So we have the flat third and the major third at 3 and 4 note shares. So those are real common, and those are the ones we're going to stick with today. Now, beyond that, you have like what I would call cinematic changes. The final like 3 keys that you could change to all share 2 notes. You know, if you've heard, we went down the line. We went 5 and 6 shares. 5 and 6 note shares are like, you know, rock and pop. 3 and 4 notes going to be, you know, in the jazz and fusion genre. And then there's finally 3 more keys, and they all share 2 notes. All keys will at least share 2 notes. There's no major chord change you can do, or major scale change, modulation, that you could do that shares less than 2 notes. They all will share 2. There's no major scale that only shares 1 with another. So what that means is the 2 note changes are going to be like really, really jarring, and you're probably going to hear those in like cinematic music when a scene is changing from one to the other. Just to explain, like, why would we choose a flat third, and what's the value of learning this right here? Because it's a nice pull, and so is the change to a major third. So I'm going to be teaching you based on these shared scales that are 3 note and 4 note shares. Not so common in rock and pop, so this is going to really give you a skill that you can use to create jazz fusion sounds. You know, as a matter of fact, maybe we'll, for pique the interest here, maybe I'll let me play the backing track really quick. In this example, which will come up later, we're going, and we'll explain this later, D minor to D major to F minor. That's like my example I gave before, where in diatonic it would be D minor to F major. Well, that would be right out of the key of C. But when we go D major to F minor, those are 2 chords pulled from completely different scale sets. And in this method, we don't have to know 2 full different scales. I mean, we could just take and then move it up. I mean, you could do that with the same exact pattern, but we don't have to do that in this method. So let's hear it real quick. We'll get a count in, and you can hear the backing track. It may be a little loud, so I haven't balanced my guitar and vocals with the level of the backing track. So be on guard with your headphones or your speakers at the moment. And D major, F minor. I made the backing track up, so I'm going to tell you it sounds good. But, you know, it sounds, you know, kind of like a something. It could happen. Those, you know, those 2 keys are following each other. They're jarring. That it doesn't sound that great because it's not common. But you could hear, like, maybe there could be a song built around that. It's weird. It's doing something. So, you know, there's your effect of a non-diatonic change in the way that they will have a sound to them if you're going to try to create one. But however, you can see how, you know, back to back, there's just 2 chords from totally different keys, and they were played together under the same beat, and it kind of works. So there you go. In case you thought, like, well, you can't make non-diatonic, you have rules, and the music theory police will be very upset with you. You know, so obviously we know it doesn't work like that. Okay, so back to let's get going in here. The 2-for-1 deal that I talked about, here it is. So if I have a root right here, now let's just forget about function. Let's make everything major right now to make it easy. So if I had a major chord, that's A major, and I'm going to C major. So let's sing A major and C major. So now what the deal is where do I start my song? Now, which creates the 1 chord, which we're going to call the root here. I should have put a 1 there, I guess. So, but the root of chord 1, you see, is brown. So our A is brown. We have a brown A. And that's a good one too. And that would when they don't change function like that, there is a pattern you'll have to work out that would be different from today's pattern, because today we're changing function, and I'm going to show you a neat thing that happens when that happens. But you'll be able to work all that out after today's lesson. But the point is, root, our 1 is A, and it's moving to C major. So our 1 is here. We know just by that pattern that's a root to a flat third. We're considering the root movement of our chord is going to be like the important aspect that guides us to figure out how to solo over each chord. Now, if I take the same exact chords, but this time I'm starting on C, my song is going. Same exact chords, so the same exact 2 melodic cells will work, meaning the same exact pattern, the same exact little trick that you use will work for both. However, you're moving from a 1 chord, C major, to a 6 chord, A major. Not the 6th chord of the key, but the movement is a 6. It's the same traveling point. So this is where you get a 2-in-1 possibility. If your song's going from A major to C major, all you have to know is what is the movement, what is the interval spacing of the movement. Then you know, okay, this is going to be equivalent of a flat third. What I know what you learn how to do that, or how to figure it out, is going to be the same no matter which. If our movement is a root to a flat third or a root to a 6, same thing. Now you ask, okay, a good question right here as well. Does that only happen with a flat third now? How am I going to know when to apply this little trick here? It works. You get a 2-in-1 deal for every possible interval. So that means that one move will cover 2 interval choices. If there's 12 interval choices in the major scale, that sort of makes it so you only have to learn 6 different potential changes. But the one, there's always a caveat, and that means that because there's different cells you can use for a different sound effect. Which you're gonna learn that today. The patterns that you choose the technique might be a little different, but that's for you and your style and your creativity to really give you some powerful, like a palette of creativity, which is what these guitar gods are creating their sounds with. So let me show you that really quick then. If they all do that, then what's the pattern here? There actually is a little pattern. You're not going to memorize this, but I just wanted to show you how it works here. Now, there's a bunch of numbers on here. If you look between the scribbled lines here, sorry for the lines over the numbers, but this shows the connection, and you can see they're all the intervals, root, and this is how the intervals are arranged on your guitar. If I pick a root note here, we'll use the A string, and I'll just play an E. If that was my root, down below is a 4, up above is a 5. Just like the map here. 1 ahead, flat 2, 2, flat 3, 3, 4, 5, the flat 5. Going down, the 7, the flat 7, above 5, flat 6, 6. So you can see, I've discussed this on my channel before. There's a neat little brick that gives you all the intervals. They're all connected near the root. So it's, moving almost any interval on the guitar is not very hard. So what that means though is this also shows us the connection. It's basically, if you look, if you move straight, you're going to get the same thing moving straight in the other direction from the root. So for example, let's take a song with G major and C major. If I start on C, The blue square is my C. Now I'm going up to G on my fretboard, up towards the ceiling for my root movement. Then I moved a fifth apart. But let's take the C and G again. The C and the G again. And we're going to start with our song. Our song starts on G, as if it's in G major. This is a diatonic change, so it could be G major. So our 1 was G, our blue was G, we moved to C, same exact chords, it would be the same exact soloing situation, yet our change was a 4. So you can see that the 4 and the 5 are going to be the same change, the same soloing strategy can be used, and they share the same amount of notes. That change is going to be your closest change. It's going to be 6 notes this direction from the root, 6 notes that direction from the root. You don't have to learn that today, but just to help you understand how all these lines through the root connect the polar opposites, which are the same movement. You can see like if I put my blue square here on the 6, whoa, sorry about that, and move to the root, that's the same as moving from the root to this third. And you can see why in our diagram here, we were talking about moving to a 6, moving to a flat third. You can see how the arrow crosses because they're the same distance apart. So my G major moving to a C major would be the same as a G major that was a 6 chord moving to the C major there. All the same thing. So then we said, well, how would anybody know? How would the listener know what's going on then? How does it? It's about your starting point, where you chose to start. And so that's all. Now moving, up and down here. You can consider this one really kind of should make it easy. The moving up to a flat second is the same as if you were like a root to flat second. Or if I had the root on the flat second and I moved down, it would be the same as taking the 7 or the root here and moving down to the major 7. A half step this way is the same as a half step that way. As far as the change in melodic cells is what I'm talking about. The effect of the chord change could be a completely different story. But it's just a half step, and that's pretty easy. If you were soloing over a half step change, you would just move up a half step. So that's why we wouldn't teach that one. And even this one here, excuse me, my voice is not ready for the lesson. The moving to a flat 7, moving to a major 2, or a 2, a whole step forward, same thing. And that's another one that's just pretty easy. Move up a whole step. And that's kind of like there's a common name for that change, but it happens a lot in pop music. It's that whole step key change. Pretty basic stuff, and so we would kind of want to skip that one. And the final one we haven't really talked about here is the flatted 5, which only has 1, because in each direction from the root, there's a flat 5. It doesn't change. It's the only interval that does that. Flat 5. No matter which one I consider the root, you're moving a tritone away. That double interval is right there. So, you can do that, but that's one of the ones that only shares 2 notes, and that's that tritone. It's going to be so jarring. Great for a cinematic scene if the scenes are changing. That is where you might hear composers actually make that change, and you can make it in your rock or pop music if you so desire. I'm sure you've all heard the something like that from Exit Life, Enter Sandman. But that one, yeah. Okay, there's a tritone in there. So you've heard one before in rock. Just what the point was there. So you say, well, what about the flat 6 and the 6? Well, that's the same as our third and third, and those are the ones we're really concentrating on, because those are going to be like you can see here. There's only so many choices. The straight up and down ones, pretty basic. Rock and roll, straight this way, up and down. Rock and roll, pop. These are the closest changes. Well, actually, the half step ups, half step down. Those are the other ones that actually only share 2 notes, and that's why you probably don't hear that change too much in rock and pop. But anyways, the real common here, real common for the whole step one, and pretty uncommon on the half step, pretty uncommon on the flat fifth. Those are the ones that only share two notes. So the big deal here is moving from a root to a third or moving to a flat third. Like I said, what we're going to cover in this lesson and probably the next one. All right, so then we got the 6 and the 6 as their counterpart. We've got everything taken care of, and hopefully it makes sense to you. If it doesn't, put it in the comments below, or maybe you want a complete lesson on this, even though it's buried in this channel somewhere, and I can't direct you to it because who knows what I titled it, but if you want some specific lesson on that, leave it in the comments. All right, so getting back to our game here, you can see now, okay, I understand the equivalence here, and it's a 2-for-1 deal. Show me more, Mark. Oh, yeah, my name's Mark, not mine's I. But anyways, so A to C is as our example we talked about, and for today, our footnotes, when you see a capital M, that's going to be, we're talking about major. When I use a lowercase letter, that's going to designate minor as a little clue to, make things easy. And I'll use a different color for each. We'll talk about that on the next page. Here is our example then expressed on 2 strings. If our chord, we found that our chord was this chord, we examine our root movement. Here we can see like the intervals laid out on simply 2 strings. This is how every string pair is going to work, except obviously the B and G string have that shift up. But we are going to keep it simple today and not worry about that string set. Although that can make some of these changes when you work these out for yourself. That might be a feature you use to make your melodic cells really close to each other, because that's what happens here. This is the magic that we're getting to. Some of these non-diatonic changes are actually easier to play and have kind of more functionality or more usefulness to get between each other than the diatonic changes, than the really distant changes. So this is why these fusion guys are doing this and how they make it look so easy. But that can get a little subjective. But just keep that as a loose thought. Anyway, so we can see here by this, if we switch ideas here, but the strings, the interval ideas would be different between strings, but you can see that our movement here then creates a root to 6 even on our fretboard. So what are we doing there? D to B to B to D. Root, if my song started here and moved there, it's a third. If my song started here and went there, it's a 6. All right, we got it. So now, if we change now we're going to talk about the functionality though. We want one of these to be major and one of these to be minor. So let's take a look. Which combination would be diatonic and which combination would not be diatonic? That is, once you're changing functions, that is going to be a deciding factor on if you can. When diatonic just means one scale, and you can use therefore one scale. I could solo over the key of C if I had 2 diatonic changes within the key of C, and then I can choose to use melodic cells. I can just noodle over the whole scale and it'll probably sound okay. Use my ear kind of thing, and you'll probably be okay. So we want to go non-diatonic today. So if we used a major chord down here and I go to a minor chord here, it's going to be like we went 4. You see where the plus sign is. We went from a 4, because look at this. This is the major scale, by the way, in case you wondered what this was. So let's go back to the key C. Get in the camera there. The camera's a little kind of low here. We'll lift that up there. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the plus sign is now on that 4 I hit. And then we would go back here. We're going to a 2. So a 4 major. Oops, sorry. A 4 major. Going to a 2 minor. is going to be diatonic. And they kind of sound pretty well together. If we used if we used a 5 chord, right, we would be here. And if we made it major and we went to minor here, we've gone from a 5 to a 3. And those are the, what do you call that? The relative pairs found within the major scale. So, okay, fair enough. Like, for example, above this D would be an A, and it would be minor, A minor. C major to A minor would be your third diatonic. So major to minor is going to be diatonic in 3 possible places. And if you just had that change, you could actually play the key of C, you could play the key of D, you could play the key of, or what is it, C, key of F, key of G. That's why all those keys are borrowed chord. You're able to borrow the chords from them. Because just those 2 changes, nobody actually knows what key you're coming from until you decide it in using notes from the scale in other instruments or in a solo. All right, so that'd be a diatonic change. So what's a non-diatonic change? Well, if we simply swap minor for major, we can see right here in this scale that it doesn't exist. There is no minor that goes to a major. Now, you should say right there, well, wait, Mark, that's just one little part of the scale. If you put that scale all over the fretboard, you'll probably find that combination, but let's take a look. You can see that little piece of the scale is right here. I'll try to circle it for you. And I got a piece of gear that ain't working here. Let's draw a border. So here's what I used for that example, this little square right there. Now here's the whole thing all over the place. You can see, once again, you cannot find a minor that goes to a major unless, right here, minor to major, but I think I made a mistake right there. Oh, yeah, because that's why it's a darker square. That's the diminished chord. Yes, sir. In case you thought you were slick. You didn't mess up mind's eye guitar here. You can't do that. Oh, yes, you can, because we make mistakes. But we do try to do all our research before we commit to a lesson. So anyways, minor to major, it's not happening. Minor to not there. Minor to not there. Minor to diminished again. So we just choose. Those are our only 3 choices anyways. No need to hash anything else out. If we choose a minor chord, we do not have a major chord diatonically moving from a, let's say, this root to a 6. Or if we start here, a 6 to a root, a major starting one to a minor, doesn't happen. Major to minor in that interval pattern does not happen. So what this is telling you is you can easily find these changes by considering the chord pattern of your major scale and seeing if it plugs in or doesn't. Okay, so we discovered what our diatonic move would be, and this is the one we're going to use for this lesson. We have minor moving to major. Okay, so we're going to choose a chord. I've programmed it into the or built the backing track around my choice, and we're going to go with that. So also, though, the same with these 2. We found the one that is, remember, major to minor is in the scale. So that would be our diatonic move. There's 3 of them that would be non-diatonic. This is the one we're going to work with today, but there is also the possibility of going minor to minor. And those actually sound maybe a little less jarring than the one I chose, but either way. As a matter of fact, you know, it's like all of a sudden I got, you know that it would be untrue. You know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, you're looking. Yeah, you know, those aren't the chords to the song, but I think that there is a non-diatonic change going over there. Why that solo sounds cooler and a little more heavy duty than you can play just by concentrating on one key. And so minor to minor. And major to major is also non-diatonic, which we discussed earlier. C major, A minor. All right. C major, A major. Sorry. So these are some possibilities you may want to work with. Let's get down to the last sheet here, which is going to tell us everything. Don't worry about all that gibberish. We're going to start easy here. So, to follow along, if you want to follow along, play along with this. Well, speaking of playing along with this, you know what I didn't do? When I created my backing track, I just picked up my guitar and I made it. It sounded pretty well intonated with the keyboard, so I think I'm in tune, but I never tuned the guitar, and it's still never tuned. It's left to the tuning I used to make the backing track. So if it may be a little off, but it blends in well with the keyboard, so I guess we're okay. Just wanted to put that out there in case you hear a discrepancy between your playing and this playing, and who knows what happens digitally by the time this video gets from my recording device to your listening device. Anyways, D major to F minor. So what we're really going to kind of concentrate on is as the backing track changes, there's a lot of information. There's going to be intervals and this and that, but just follow the colors. Play the blue over D, play the orange over F. I struggled with the colors. I needed them to be, different enough to see. I wanted to use something a little bit more, I wanted something darker to use for F minor, but the color palette on the choices you get here is a little strange, and I had a whole bunch of different colors. I just settled for this and moved on. So anyways, in case the colors are like that, that's why I chose those. Anyways, so I guess they're okay. So you can see here, if we're going to go D major to F minor, the helpful thing to do is start here, and then if we want to figure out how to do this on our own, then you're just going to take the root movement, and you can see, oh, okay, yeah, Mark, there's that. If we started on D and moved to F minor, which is what our backing track does, we got a root moving to a chord built on the flat third of the scale, of some different scale. So we have a D major chord shape here, you can see. So D major chord. So you can hear that they kind of don't really go together. You can hear that's the opposite. The major scale, or C major, would have D minor to F major. And those do sound pretty kosher together because those would come from another key, but we reversed that today. It's for our fusion-y pseudo fusion track and our bad guitar chord. I don't know about you, but that sounds like something just got a lot quieter. It must have hit the volume. Okay, so there's our root movement and the two chords. So what all you need to do is take that root movement and move it down to where you're going to be soloing. So where is D and where's this chord movement using two different strings so we can find them close to each other. We have them because if you used one string, you'd be jumping up and down the fretboard, or, well, I guess you'd only be moving up a third, and you can do that, but we want to do something where these two shapes are on top of each other. Yeah. So here they are. We have the D here and an F there. Okay, that helps. There's our same movement, and we've just simply transferred it down. We found where it is on the B and E string. All right, so that's a start. So we start with this D major because that's going to be the first chord of our backing track. Just a caveat here. I think it would have sounded better. I think originally I wanted it to go from minor to major. That may have been a little less jarring, but I built the backing track when I wasn't thinking that, and the D is first and it goes to the F minor. It's kind of the same thing like we said. But it may have sounded a little less jointed going one way to the other, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, and you could say, well, just start your backing track on the F then, but we got a count in, and the way it's built, it just sounds better starting from the D. Okay, so what we're going to do then, let's find our D major. It's our first chord. We're going to find our D major pattern. And that's pretty easy. You say, oh, okay, well, D major, we know our D shape. Actually, and that's just a coincidence. Uh, the D shape is helpful to use. If I find a root on the B string and I need major real fast, I'm going to use the arrows that we've talked about in previous lesson. If you don't know what that is, well, you're going to have to watch a different lesson. But if you never saw this pattern, it kind of makes this arrows in two directions, which kind of helps you remember, oh yeah, I need to shift here over the G and B string. Which direction do I go? Is it left and right and left? I always used to make that mistake, and now with this in my mind, I always know everything on the B string is going to be moving in the direction of that arrow. Everything on the G string, if I need to find a certain interval, I'm going to need to shift that way. Pretty cool, huh? Anyways, so here it is on the, here's the D, B, C, get in the count, B on the 12th, C on the 13th, and D on the 15th. Because melodic cells are so strong, they give you that ability, that flexibility to make those little chromatic walks in between, and that's what you heard there. Right? Ah, you're like, oh, I know that guitarist that used to do that a lot. That may be one of his tricks. So, yeah, okay. But I didn't want to distract you from our lesson today. So anyways, okay, there it is. So then where, if our F is close by, maybe we got a structure like surrounding this that we can just go to. So let's use, and what did we use, by the way? If you have watched our melodic cell, this is a melodic cell. It's just 4 notes. If you watched our other lesson, you could see that there's different choices for major. I didn't have to use the standard melodic cell here. I could have went, for example, and that's will also work for major. Which is almost like what we were doing anyways, but this melodic cell just misses the root, which is a cool sound, and a hip sound, because you're playing something and just depriving the audience of that root until maybe you hit it. And that's one skill you're hearing in those solos with tension, is a lot of times it's really just about withholding one note from the audience that the audience probably wants to hear, like you hitting a root note. But roots can be boring, and that totally leaves it out if you use that melodic shape. But we're getting off the lesson here. But there is a lot of offshoot learning, that will tangential learning, because it's a tangent of our topic. Okay, so the B string root gives us the arrow shape of a standard melodic minor cell. Since we're doing major, we'll just use this standard cell to keep a pretty solid sound for our lesson here. But we didn't have to, was the point. And that leads us to what we're talking about here, because next we'll use a standard but less exciting F minor melodic cell. This is your standard. If you're like, yeah, Mark, that's actually, yeah, that's like pentatonic minor. That's the same old thing. But we are withholding that 4. You can see it's in our outside area there that we don't have to use. And you say, Mark, what's that little symbol by the 4? What does that mean? Here's a trick, though. When we land on that 4, if we do, it's great. Or if we're getting into this shape, bend the 4 to the 5. We're going to talk about that as a little trick, and we're going to call it the Gilmore trick. Don't pin that on Dave Gilmore. So now it doesn't do that every time. Comfortably Numb solo number 1. And yeah, that's a common it's a real smooth way to get into chords, like a smooth solo does, like a bendy, cool, smooth solo from David Gilmour. Especially in that first solo for You've Become Comfortably Numb. All right, so F and minor, pretty easy. We just goes, yeah, our F is here and our minor shape would be here. So doesn't that put these overlapping? Well, let's look at them together and make a little, now we have a solo palette. And look at all we got here. If we expand our melodic shapes, what I did was I used the same color, but I used a lighter tone to say we can go here. But I didn't want to, have numbers like totally everywhere. And we can be here. We can know where to bend our 4 into a 5. And then when we, but that's when we get to F, we're going to start playing this shape, all the blue, right? And we know when we're playing the blue, or if we're getting back into the blue, we can bend that 4. We can do a little half step bend. As you can see, it's a, half step away. The 4 is a whole step from the 5. A little half step bend from the 7 getting into the root can sound cool too. You can see like there's options and choices, and helpful to know them. So that's what we'll take into consideration when we're trying to scramble over the backing track and play all these notes. So, but they're next to each other, so it's kind of easy. You can kind of think, okay, from this D shape here, I'm just kind of expanding. I'm right in the middle of my melodic cell. You can already hear a sound because I'm playing the changes, right? And you can almost hear it without the backing track because I'm so solidly into the changes, because a melodic cell, while it can be the standard notes, the boring notes, it plants you firmly into those tonalities. So that's why you get the sound of changes. All right, cool. So here, let's play that D. There's that half step 7 bend. We're gonna practice the bends. Oh, I hit that 7. Oh, so we were expecting that, but I bent the 4, and it sounds good too. Cool. So now we have a solo palette and a couple of cool sounding tricks. It's kind of all we need to be David Gilmour. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding, Dave. Dave, don't get mad. I'm not the other. Okay. Oh, let me just stop. I miss that band, and I love all those guys. Anyways, I have no bias against one or the other, like a lot of people do, because they're, get a little bent up about one of them. But anyways, sorry. Okay. I don't. Our palette is here, so let's hear it with a backing track. Let's hear it for the boy. Let's hear it for the band. I don't even know. It's actually like Sheena Easton or something. I don't know. Okay, sorry. The D. So we have our little key here. When we're in the D, are starting two counts of 4, so 2 bars of D, 2 bars of F minor. Capital D for major, lowercase f for minor. I use the white to kind of keep everything a little bit, separated in, so for a clear pattern here to see when you're jamming. All right, so let's hear that, and there will be a 4-beat count in. I'm going to let it play one time. I don't think, did we play this yet? I don't know. Yeah, I think we did. But anyways, I'm going to let it play one time, and then I'll jump into a solo. D major, F minor. Alright, so let me get back to my screen. Just the roots. Half step up. So you can hear the solo kind of glues it all together. Unfortunately, I have to switch screens. You guys can't see me doing that, but I have to switch to my DAW to get it to stop. Instead of just being able to press a hotkey, it would be cool if I could do that, but it makes you have to be have that program open. Anyways, so there is the backing track. And in the beginning, when I went to F, you might have heard like it didn't sound that great because I went to I hit the 12th fret. So I hit a I was still in the key of D instead of hitting my so. That's the one I meant to hit, but I hit this instead. Anyways, but oops. Hold on. Try this one more time. Anyways, here, F. I'm going to bend to that 7 to get back. All right. It sounds a little more slick if you get in on the 5, bend the 4 to the 5. That is your very common trick for a real smooth changeover. Here, let's hear. I'm going to, every time that the chord changes, I'm going to just bend to the 5. Let's hear that roll here. So we'll start again here. Here comes the bend. No, it's not. I lied. Here comes. Trying to stop the backing track. Stop backing track. Come on. All right, so you could kind of hear a little clumsy there. Wasn't on my best, but there you heard the bends getting into there. So pretty cool. There is a basic one. Now it sounds somewhat basic though because they're both your standard. They're both your standard. Standard predicted change, like standard cell for minor, standard cell for major. So what if we change one of those to get a little bit of a hipper sound? And we're going to see something really cool that happens and makes this super easy. You're not going to believe how easy this is. You will literally, this should blow your mind. All right, so now let's change to the universal melodic cell. Now, if you're like, universal melodic cell, like, where does that come from? How do I? Well, you missed the last 2 lessons where we went over each of the possibilities for major, each of the possibilities for minor, and one of them that works for all 3 chords. That's why it's called universal. You can plug this into major. Dominant 7, and you can plug this into minor, as a matter of fact. Actually, it's not. It doesn't work for major. But so I guess maybe universal wasn't the best term for it. I probably changed that, but forgot I did. Anyways, though, because it won't work for major because you have a flatted 7 in here. I mean, you sort of can kind of push it in if you're just playing a triad. But once you play that flat 7, you're giving the listener the idea that that triad is actually dominant because that's the difference between any, the addition of a 7 over the triad is going to determine, if you put a major 7, this note, it would be a major 7 chord, and that would be a dominant 7 chord, and that's the deciding factor right there. So, for the beginners. Anyways, so, but it'll work for minor just fine. We'll have to always include, if we want to express minor fully, that's going to be where our, here, in the middle of our cell, our character cell here, we could have a, well, that's weird how that's not working. Oh, okay, because I'm in a white color here, and here, let's do this. Hold on. See what's in there already. There it is, BB, our BB note. We could have B3. Our flat 3rd is right there, and that's a good color for that, since we're just kind of putting a random note in there. just so we know. Doesn't have to be anything that we play. And but it would be a welcome addition during this during our F minor. The major third may not be. That's going to be like a trick note, but I would use that just more as a chromatic step into 4 from the 3rd to the 4. But so here's everything together. Now it looks like they're a little bit distant, but our next and final learning aspect is going to show you a trick that is going to blow your mind. Now, okay, so here they are. Let's just basically jam it over the backing track. So we'll go back to this and start our backing track again. Here we go. So here we are with our same D. Messed up that change button, and that is because I was thinking about an initial mistake I did when I got into the D major. I got in on the 6. It just didn't sound that good. But that's why I've listed these intervals, so you can decide for yourself, hey, is there a note I don't want to get into D on? It's going to kind of sound a little bit too tense for getting back in. You want to get in on the D, get on the, basically get, or that's going to be your 6, as you know, is your away note, or it's your, of the this particular melodic cell design. The 6 is going to be like your in the cell. It's going to be the one that is the more of a tense note. Still good over the chord, but since it's the tense one, it's harder to get in and sound correct, or sound like you'd really nailed the change with a 6. Anyway, so but you could hear for the most part when I got it right, I went from like the 3, and then I chose to just go 3, and as soon as the chord change, I went into the 4 and into the 7. It worked. It went in, and it sounded right, but getting in on the 4, a little questionable. That's an 11. Over a minor chord, an 11 is probably there, but it's not really actually in the chord. It would have to be like a suspended, more of a minor suspended sound for that to sound really hip or locked in. It may have been better if I had chosen to find a 5, or go from this 3, from that 3 there down into the root, would have probably really nailed the change. And let's hear that. So we'll go back to our backing track and start again. And then we'll do some bends. Let's try that again. It's the wrong notes. We're going to go 3 to the F root. Ah, that sounds good. Wrong note again. That's why that didn't sound good. A little chromatic walk down. There you go. See, that didn't sound good because I went from the 6 to the 4. It's okay, but it doesn't really lock in. Let's go to that. We'll go to that again. 3 to root. There we go. Well, we went in on the 3. from that 6, but we're going to walk it down to the 2. Not too bad. Let's try to go move a little diatonically. I hit the major 3rd instead. Let's try that again. We're going to start with the 6. Whoa, I screwed it up again. Try again. 6. What if I go in on the 6 and walk up to the D? Let's try that. So what you learn there, stop the backing track, stop that crazy thing. What you learn there is if you like do something like get in on the 6, you can quickly correct it by walking up to find your next note. And then this one, you're walking up right to the root. So you're really going to get in. So that works like a trick because you got in on a note that's like kind of questionable, and that walks you right up into the new key. Kind of sounds like you're going, you went intense, awful, release. If you didn't hear the change right, it's because I played the wrong note. So anyways, that could be something you do, like a real long slide to get there, but you got to know exactly where that pattern is. You can see it's a little bit of a, it's going to have a pretty outside sound over F minor. Here is the standard melodic cell. Oh, sorry. Here is the standard melodic cell for F minor. So let me put my guitar on the screen here. I got my camera. Not very well placed, but anyways, when we play the F minor way up here, the uncomfortable F past the 12th on the 13th fret there, you can work it at like a minor pentatonic. You can think that and find the melodic cell really easy. That's why it's the standard one. It's right out of the regular, and it just plugs right in because that is the standard minor cell. Here's the other alternate, but it's because it's alternate, gives us kind of a more of a, I think for me it gives me more of a hip sound that I might want to use to have more of that fusion guitar solo effect. So going down from there, now here's where it gets even easier, and this might actually sound better because we've got kind of a little bit of a disjoint here. We've got the ability to go from a 3 to a root, which is going to be probably our best change. We discovered that our 6 to 4 is, but so what else could there be? Now remember this, if we're just considering the blue right here, we know that there's basically 2 shapes in any of these keys. So here's our key of D major. Now right here is the same melodic cell expressed in that square or the rectangle, like the F is. Now where does that fall? Are they the same? No, that would have to be diatonic if they were the same. So what happens? Oh my gosh, this couldn't have gotten any easier. All we need, and we would have never thought of this on our own. Did you know that when changing from a root, a chord that starts on one note and then has another chord on the flat third, that would also happen to be this major and minor, unique major and minor combo that we're using, you can, excuse me, use your melodic cells, whichever one you're doing, all you have to do is move it down a half step for every change. It's up one, down one. Crazy, right? So easy. Who can't do that, right? So now we can see, like, if we're in D major and we move up, we might get the 5 moving into the 4. Maybe not too great, but here we can get a 3 moving into what would be like the 9. And when, like, let's say F minor is wrapping up, getting ready to, I got one beat left to get into D, the blue, I might bend this note of the cell, this 2 with a star. It's because we're bending from one key to another. We're bending through the change. The 2 bends up to the 5 of D. How would you know that unless you knew where all your intervals were? You just would know, hey, I want to get to that. I want to get in on the 5. I'm going to bend a note. And hey, what do you know? It's a note that's I'm already playing while I'm on minor. Pretty cool. So we'll try that. I'll try to work that into the solo. We can bend from the 2. And from the D, you could do like a half step from the root, bending, but you'll be getting in on the flat 7. So, you know, but you can take that 6, land on a tense note in D, and bring it right into a consonant, a real consonant note on the F, a real solid nail the change note. We can call those like nail the change notes. The root, the 3rd, and the 5th, and probably a lot of times the 5th, is going to be a real solid intro change. Probably the root and the 5th are like the most solid nail the change notes. The 3rd is going to be like the next level of nail the change. And then if you hit a 6 or a 7, those are going to be pushing your boundaries a little bit. But when you get good as a player, you can start using all of these to your taste. And so you can see the expanded structures here, same melodic patterns, melodic cell patterns that we learned in the last few lessons. So we know those. Okay, and wherever we find ourselves, if I'm way down here and I'm like, oh my God, the change is coming, I'm just going to move up a half step. I'm going to take my whole idea, move it up a half step, and wander around somewhere else. And by that time, it's going to be ready to change, and I'm simply going to fall back to major, rise up for minor. So that's a little bit reversed, but let's try it. So the same shapes, half step apart. And over here, the final thing is that you see the arrow shape, right? The Camaro arrow. I'm going to simply move it one more time. When it gets to the F, I'm going to move it up. Half step, and I'm going to plug in. Totally cool. Let's try it. And just about, so almost any change will work, but some of them will be better than others. But if you get in on a note that doesn't lock into the change, like this flat 7 here, you can simply walk it up quick to the F and go chromatic. If they don't sound great, go chromatic. And then you'll have a real hip sound getting to that root. Let's try it. So back to the backing track here and go. Orange. Orange, you glad? Blue. I'm going to bend that 2 now. Here's that 5, an orange, and I use that arrow, which I was trying to say is a walk-up note. Here's a 5 again. I can bend it. Let's try to walk up again. 5. All right, cool. Here we're going to use that 2 and bend it to the 5. Here comes the bend. That sounds cool. Cool. Well, I didn't get in on time, but that's because, so you can hear, you'll hear when you make a mistake, and you'll hear when you're really locking it in, and you want to, write these intervals down so you can kind of see, like, oh yeah, bending from the D to, a half step up to get into the orange pattern will work, but it may sound a little tense unless you walk it up real quick to the 5, or to the root there, this lowercase f. Now you heard me bend the 2 to the 5 here to get in over there. Now, when I went back, I still used the 2 because that's actually a shared note, by the way. It actually happens to be the 4 of the major key. And major keys are a little more friendly with 4s, so it won't sound as, or which would be an 11, which would will allow you to get in with this kind of sound, which was kind of cool. So I went from orange 2. It works to get in good because you're going into from a 9 into a 3, but it kind of works like a 4-3. It's very common in, or I'm sure you recognize that little lick there. That'll probably get us demonetized, but so anyways, a nice shared note to know that you can get in to your key. So we'll go, you can just hear that. You can hear, like, yeah, that matches our change. It's so obvious to get into the 3 that way. So anyways, or take that 2 and bend up. So that 2 is a real handy change note that you'll learn, that you got notes that are great for pivoting, and you're pivoting to something that's totally a half step. You just take whatever shape wherever you land and move that shape in the direction of the change. In this case, it's opposite, up for the minor and then down for the major. And that's the lesson. I bet we're at about 40 minutes, hopefully under an hour. And because, we like to ramble and we like to jam a lot. So, wow, look at that. Now you can handle a completely non-diatonic chord change that some fusion song might have. And as long as they're, this pattern will work if they're the flat third or major 6 apart. And next week we'll go over the major third and minor 6, and kind of you see how the another neat geometric little anomaly kind of thing happens there. Here we have flat third and regular 6, and in the other one is the inverse. We'll have a regular third or a major third and the flatted 6. Interesting. Back to the back to life, back to reality. You can see that expressed here, the same shape with the root to flat third, root to 6, and it's there. All right, so if you like this lesson and you now are 10x'd in your playing and you can't wait for the major third lesson to come out, well, the best thing you can do as a reward, a simple reward, hit that something on the screen. Hit one of them buttons. I don't know if these will have a hype. Maybe I'm going to set up a membership. I don't know, but this was totally free to you. So in lieu of that, if you wanted to make any kind of contribution, most people like things for free. It's down below in the Buy Me a Coffee link. That would really be helpful. And please just support the channel. We need to grow here, or just tell somebody else. But YouTube will tell somebody else. If you hit like, just do something. You don't have to tell anybody. Just hit the like, hit the subscribe. Getting new subscribers is always good. And yeah, I think that's all the things you can do. Notifications will tell you when I do post a lesson, because I am sort of sporadic these days. I have just a different schedule. It doesn't allow me to do plug-in every Sunday like I was, and I really need to be doing these every day if I want YouTube to help push the channel, and I don't. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Methods is that long name nobody can remember, but so if you hit the notifications and the subscribe, you won't lose the channel and go, hey, where was that guy from last week? Oh, I don't know. I'll be lost in a pile of AI slop that's taking over YouTube. Sorry, I didn't say that, YouTube. But yeah, and that's another thing. If you liked a real live person telling you real things, explaining things in a way that hopefully will make sense to the layperson in my own unique way of expressing guitar knowledge here, subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to all that. You guys are the best. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.